philosophy. Claiborne and me, COP. You, me, and Claiborne, coffee and philosophy.
Okay, so everything's off to a wonderful start, and you know, it is what it is. The cardboard box that Ron runs the Wave servers out of is currently on fire again, and maybe this will be the time that the fire extinguisher won't be enough. Yeah, see that's the problem. Whenever I cannot broadcast, I can't amplify my voice like 2,000 times. So that's why we try to avoid doing it like this, because nobody can hear me.
Yeah, and usually my voice is way too loud because people turn up to hear you, and I blow their ears off. So adjust accordingly, people.
Yeah, that would be the problem, guys. So you have to like right click my name, turn me all the way up, turn Cope down to somewhere near a reasonable level, and then just crank up your whole like your whole audio channels. Yeah, it's see like normally I do all of this for you guys, but Ron broke it or whatever. So here we all are, and yeah, so I guess we can blame Shane. He hasn't he hasn't been blamed in a while. Like
Why not?
how does anybody have me at 84%? Like have you ever heard me? Okay, so yeah, I don't know. What's cracking on your end, Cope?
Still plenty of this COVID stuff going around. Got some pamphlets in the mail, pretty fun from both sides of the argument, as we like to discuss. The black and the white of the situation, the day and the night. One pamphlet for a rally that was terribly written, and dates are all messed up and that kind of thing. And another one telling us that we need to get the jab, as Julia likes to hear me say, to help save humanity and that kind of thing. So it's all fun and games. Also saw a little thing from our best mate Ben Shapiro talking about how terrible it is in Australia and all these lockdowns and all that kind of thing as well. And I was just laughing because it was just like, dude, like you're referring to our new stuff, which is horrible. It's just terrible shit. Um, but it's not as bad as it's making out. But it is what it is. People want to use this as an example to, oh, they're taking our freedoms and all that kind of stuff. So, it is what it is. But life really hasn't changed that much. As I said, we've got people having parties and that kind of thing. You walk out onto the streets, still people walking around, that kind of thing. It's not like everyone has been, locked in their homes and sealed in, welded in, and kept in their homes and that kind of thing. That's the way that it's being made out. But it is what it is. It's pretty fun to watch. But that's about it from down under.
Yeah, I saw something interesting this week that okay, like we all, I'm pretty sure anybody in crypto space heard about El Salvador basically like making Bitcoin legal tender and all that crap. Um, Surprisingly, there started to be some random protests popping up where people were resisting it. And I thought this was very odd, right? Now, like something about this whole situation kind of screams agenda to me. Like just like how in the past, the U.S. likes to go and like basically create civil unrest in countries to push agendas. I'm starting to wonder if that might be what's going on in South Asia right now. And then we also see like the whole shipping nuclear subs to Australia type thing. I don't know, man. I really feel like the U.S. is gearing towards trying to get into a war with China, or at least a proxy war. But the situation in El Salvador was really, really strange to me because like these are people that like actually need hard money, and like Bitcoin makes perfect sense for them. and the government was also giving them free money, to start using it. Like the whole situation that like there would be people out there like revolting and resisting against this doesn't make a lot of sense, unless of course you consider the angle that it's an agenda being pushed. But yeah, I mean, like imagine walking into a country like Venezuela, right, and saying, "Hey guys, we're gonna give you all like 50 US dollars worth of Bitcoin, like since the economy's like completely destroyed, the bolivar is worthless. We're gonna try to use something else that like is apparently appreciating in value." And I mean, like, what's the worst case scenario, right? Like your money's already worthless. You might as well have some kind of like viable alternative. And I mean, like, could you imagine like Venezuelans like rioting in the street because the government gave them free Bitcoin? Like it blows my mind. But like somehow El Salvador got some kind of like uprising and people resisting and protesting the government giving them free Bitcoin. I don't know. I
Mm,
was I
well,
was like a little mind boggled about this.
well, I can't say that I've heard about that. I haven't been tapped into the news too much, but leaning on the human condition, people don't like change, and new things are scary and terrible, and they're the demons. They're sent by the devil and that kind of thing. So I can imagine there would be some people that are quite resistant to it. I mean, even people that I know. When we talk about Bitcoin, straight away the knee jerk reaction is, that's just bullshit computer money. You guys are all gonna blah blah blah, and they've got all this negative shit to say. They haven't looked into it. They don't know anything about it, but they're just anti straight away because it's something new. They don't understand it, and it's scary. So I can understand that. At some level, there would be people everywhere, no matter what the country is, what the condition is, etc., that would be against this because they just don't understand what's going on. So I'd probably say that that's what's going on here. But of course, we could have the media places amplifying these things for the agenda of whatever it is that they're trying to push at the time. I can see how it pans out, but I guess I can just understand where they're coming from. Not that I agree with it, but I can understand it.
Yeah, I just dropped an interesting thread. If you guys know Victoria, aka Chocolate MILF, aka our Spanish moderator, she put out a tweet earlier, and I responded to it, and Marky Mark ended up getting involved. It's just an interesting thread to take a little read. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying there, Cope, and I get that there are probably like some people that are like hesitant to get involved in crypto and all of that. But like, where I struggle is like imagining going into, like a really I mean, El Salvador is not like the poorest country in the world, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like Nigeria, it's not like Venezuela, but it's not too much like higher up the ladder, you know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, like I think it's a brilliant move. Like, I think that the leadership of El Salvador like knows they're heading in that direction. They know their money is like going down the fucking toilet, and they're like, they see an option. And you know what, dude? I think like the hype alone of being the first country to like adopt Bitcoin as an actual currency is going to probably get a lot of expats, especially like crypto rich people. Dude, like they would love to move there. Like think about it. Like all of these people, especially like in the US where they're trying to make it like harder, they're trying to make your life more difficult if you're involved in crypto. And you see a country saying, "You know what? Like fuck it. Like we're all in. Like it's now an actual currency in our country. Please come here." I think you're going to probably see El Salvador becoming a really hot spot for crypto expats. And, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it could, like, literally turn their economy around. But, time will tell. Who knows? Like, maybe it's, like, the worst decision ever. Maybe, like, Bitcoin goes down in value and it crashes their economy again. Who knows? But, I mean, like, if we look back throughout, like, the last, what is it now? Like, 13 years, '08. So yeah, I guess like 13 years. If you look back at like the logical progression and adoption rates of cryptocurrency, like to me this is like the next step on the ladder, right? Like first we started, like getting into like the actual adoption. We started seeing like mainstream investors and companies starting to accept crypto. and then like the next logical step would be governments. And to me, like this is a pretty big milestone for crypto. You know, like you literally have a government like legitimizing and adopting it officially. And I think going a little bit forward in the future, I think we're going to see more countries are going to do this, especially if it works out very well for El Salvador. I mean, like, imagine a country like Venezuela or a country, like Nigeria, like any of like those South Asian countries that have like really poor economies, but they have really cheap electric and really strong data connections. I mean, like, it makes so much sense. Like, if your economy is in the shitter, right? Like, it's complete fucking spiral. You have no, like, other means to get yourself out of this hole that you've been able to figure out. Like, why wouldn't you take that risk? And, like I said, I'm not a fortune teller. I can't predict the future, but I do think that if this works out well for El Salvador, we're going to see a lot of countries jump on this bandwagon, even if it's not Bitcoin. Like I do think we'll see more countries adopting crypto as like legitimate currencies because their currencies are so devalued that they're basically worthless.
Hmm. Well, I have heard quite a bit in regards to sort of like adoption, but in a different way. So, the countries are, well, in my country in particular, they're looking at making tokens, which cryptocurrency, but they're sort of like based in government. So essentially, it'll be like, I know, I think you guys call them like food stamps and that kind of stuff over there, where you get um, your government spending for whatever time, blah blah, etc. We've got Centrelink over here in Australia, and they give you X amount of money, blah blah blah. And for a little while before crypto started taking off, they were talking about moving to food stamp kind of like setup where you can only spend it in certain places. You can only spend it at Woolworths or whatever the local shopping center is, Costco, that kind of thing. And that became problematic because you can't get everything from the one place, etc. So what they're talking about in Australia, at least anyway, is creating a cryptocurrency that's government based, and they hand it to you. It has an expiry date, so if you don't use it within X amount of time, it dies, it burns, if you will, and these kinds of things. But my kind of like concern, I guess, with this is that what are they going to do with it once they get it? Because we're talking about government systems that have been in place for a long time. They're not really there to help you, right? As we've established. So how are they going to utilize this to try and manipulate us further to do what they want to do, whether it's a jab, whether it's to do whatever they want to do? I'm just interested to see how it's going to play out because you've got this technology that we're mucking around with right now, and they're going to try and adapt it. They're going to try and use it. How are they going to try and turn it against us?
Oh yeah, no, I mean like that's something that, especially even with China right now, and I do think like long term, I think this is going to work out very well for China. Not necessarily the people of China, but the digital yuan. I have a hard time pronouncing Asian words, but yuan, whatever. Um, they actually did this. They've already implemented it. They have a centralized like government-backed digital currency, and yeah. Now I think that countries that are willing to like give up a little bit of that control and like go with a more global based asset like Bitcoin or like Ethereum, something like that, I think like long term they'll probably perform better because I
Mm.
think like the same problem we see with fiat is going to happen with government backed centrally controlled cryptocurrencies. I mean, like they're cryptocurrencies in technology, but like they're not cryptocurrencies in philosophy or ideology. And I think that's the really important thing to distinguish here, right? Because a centrally backed, like government controlled cryptocurrency is really not all that different than like the current state of fiat, right? Like, I mean, yeah, there are still like paper bills, but like, how many people like honestly still carry around paper money like regularly? And I mean, like, I know some people carry like small amounts, like, it's just in case, but I mean, like, you can literally carry around like pretty much anything you want in your pocket with cryptocurrency, right? You can even encrypt it so that if somebody mugs you, they can't break in and get access to your private keys. Like, you can literally carry your bank around in your pocket. You can secure it very well. And yeah, I mean, to me, like, logically, it's not all that different. But the key difference is whenever you look at a government controlled, like, centralized cryptocurrency, what you're going to get is, say, like, the government's like looking at you for something like tax evasion, or like, they call you a criminal for whatever reason, then they're going to be able to, like, essentially lock your wallet. Now, I don't know, I'm definitely curious to see how this plays out with El Salvador, because I know the way they did this is, like, they released their own Bitcoin, like, kind of like Lightning Network wallets. They're calling it, like, the Chivo wallet. And I'm wondering, like, how much of this is actually off-chain transactions, because obviously the Bitcoin network fees, it's just not feasible to be doing, like, $1-2 transactions in Bitcoin. But my understanding is they are using Lightning Network nodes. And I'm wondering if that Chivo wallet gives them some kind of ability to, like, lock people's addresses. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Like I said, I mean, we're in uncharted territory, right? Like, this is something that we've been pushing for. This is something a lot of people have been hoping for. Personally, I don't want governments involved in much of anything, but to me, it's an interesting use case, right? Like, I want to see where this goes, even if I don't necessarily agree with the government getting involved in crypto in that way. I
Yeah.
think it's better than something like China with the digital yuan, where like, your money is now tied to, like, what do they call it? Like, your social score or whatever. Like, they
Mm.
actually, like, as much as we think the U.S. is going like 1984, man, like, you go to China, like, there's literally, like, the goon squad walking around the street, like, listening for political dissent. There are cameras everywhere tracking you, which that's also in the U.S. But I mean, like, I can tell you, even now, like, walking around in the U.S., I don't have to, like, look over my shoulder and wonder if there are, like, government agents, like, about to jump on me if I say something like "fuck the police." At least not in, like, most places. But yeah, like in China, I've talked to people that were living in China, that, like, have lived in China, expats from the U.S., etc., and, like, they'll tell you straight up, like, the whole government goon squad walking around and disappearing people thing, like, it's not a joke. Especially if they consider that you're doing political dissent, or if they, like, consider you a threat or dangerous. Yeah, I mean, just, like, imagine trying to be like a white guy going to North Korea, right? Like, they'll put on the dog and pony show for you, but, like, all of your hotel rooms are completely wired and tapped. You know that there are people, like, literally walking around following you, spying on you 24/7 the entire time you're in that country. Like, I don't think China is quite as bad as North Korea, but it's not much better, is the sentiment that I got. And, like I said, I think it's going to be interesting. I would never put money into like, a government controlled centralized cryptocurrency like the digital yuan. I do think that the U.S. will probably do their own U.S. dollar, especially with the way that the SEC has been trying to, like, crack down on companies like Coinbase. I don't know. Like I said, we're getting into speculation here. I think the future is going to be a really, really interesting place now that, like, cryptocurrency is kind of getting more and more legitimized, like, even if they don't want to
Mm.
legitimize it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to see more countries, like, if they're going to do a digital currency thing, like, adopt, publicly distributed digital currency, something like Bitcoin, something like Ethereum. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot better approach than doing the digital centralized government-backed cryptocurrencies, but I think that's what most likely we'll see the most of.
Yeah, well, I think they they resisted the whole um, crypto setup as long as they could, like governments. They rejected it for as long as they could, and I think they're getting sort of like to that point where they've realized that there's not a lot they can do about it besides try and, like, they tried to shut it down. Now they can't shut it down. They want to try and control it. So I think what we need to be aware of, and something that concerns me in regards to this, always applying the human condition, is that we might get what we want, i.e., cryptocurrency being adopted and it being worldwide, blah blah, etc. But we might not get it how we want it. It might not be, that you can pay for your groceries with Bitcoin, Litecoin, like whatever it is that you feel like using, just at the tap of your phone, or you get a card from somewhere and just use it like that. It's more than likely going to be that the governments are going to dodge and weave and shift and adapt and make you use things the way that they want you to use it, so they have some kind of control over the situation, whether they can, like you said, they're going to go for taxes, they're going to go for this, they're going to go for that, they're going to try and squeeze everything they can out of you, for utilizing crypto and that kind of thing. So it's something that we need to be aware of. But this whole concept of you get what you want, but not how you want it. I'm not sure if you've played the good old PS1 games, the Twisted Metal series, but there's this game, and basically you got to play through, and you got to get to the end. You're in a vehicle. It's a vehicle fighting game, that kind of thing. There's a dude at the end that can give you, he can grant you wishes, that kind of thing, right? There's always some, again, Twisted Metal. There's a twist at the end. And the one that sort of like strikes me the most is these two, like, dumb dudes, and they're like, yeah, man, like, we won the Twisted Metal series, man, and we want to be able to fly. And he's like, all right, no worries. He grants you the ability to fly. And these two guys, they leap off the edge of this building and plummet to their deaths. And he ends up pulling out a couple of, tickets to fly to Hawaii or some shit like that. And that's the thing, like, there's always like this twist at the end. If you're not ready for that twist, then you're going to get caught out. You don't want to be caught out. You don't want to be holding the bag, as they say, is the Twisted Metal endings there. If you want to have a look, and they're pretty funny, And for a game, it's like, yeah, it's pretty funny. But it seems that this is the way that it's going to play out. Right, we're going to get what we want, but not how we want it. So be ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, governments do have that tendency to operate that way. I mean, like,
That's what I'm saying. Just be ready, man, because it's probably not going to be the utopia that we hope for. It's not going to be exactly how we think it's going to be.
And I was actually looking into some different cryptos today, because I'm kind of getting to that point where, I diversify some of the profits into other projects, things like that. I tend to do that a lot whenever coins have really huge run-ups that I don't think are necessarily 100% sustainable, at least not short term. Like right now with Solana, um, I don't know. I've been really considering like hedging like some of my Solana into something else, because like you got to consider it's already gone up like shit from where I bought it. It's probably still like up like 10x right now. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I feel like things blow up too fast and they're gonna have to cool down, so I start looking for places to diversify. I actually, Cope, since you asked about it the other week, I actually did buy more Hive this week, and you know, my current goal is I'm stacking Hive on the dips, because I really do think that Hive is like gearing up for a real run. Where that goes, I don't know. But I do think Hive will see another all-time high this year. So I'm trying to like get some more just to be ready. But just like what we saw with Steam before, like in the last real big bull run, I mean, it didn't take long at all for Steam to go from like 30, 40 cents to $8, right? Like whenever it happens like stupid fast. And my goal is always to be in a position to capitalize, because just like for example, like let's say Hive goes to like $8 or $10, and I can sell, like fuck 20,000 Hive at that price, right? Then Hive goes back to $1. I can basically just take that money, put it right back into Hive, and I now have 8 times the Hive that I had. So like that's my general approach. But yeah, like whenever I see something like Solana just like moon the fuck up, and I don't know, like right now it's kind of holding, so it's one of the things I'm like looking to see, like, do I think it's about to run some more or not? But yeah, I start looking around, and I was looking into some different currencies, and ETN had got my attention. And then like the more I look into it, like ETN kind of like masquerades as this like privacy coin, from what I can tell. Like it's doing like the whole ring signatures and everything, like like Monero. But then I also find out they're working closely with regulators, and I'm just like, why would you build a privacy currency while also working closely with regulators? So yeah, like it kind of like yeah, made me a little nervous on that. So I didn't go for it, even though I think the price looks right. But like that's the thing, and this is one of the big things I always tell people about like researching shit. Just like, I mean, if you want to like randomly gamble with shit in crypto, like you can always do that. I mean, there's currently we're pushing towards 10,000 coins listed on CoinGecko to give you an idea. But yeah, like if you're just taking a random like off-shot gamble, go for it. But if you're like looking for things to hold long term that you don't mind sitting on for a year or two, I'd definitely highly advise you to know what the hell you're putting money into. like things like Wu talked me into getting some exchange coins for, well, she didn't really talk me into it, but she was talking about it and it kind of convinced me. But uh, she was talking about like getting this exchange coin because they were doing the kind of like what Binance and Huobi did by releasing like their own, basically like ETH clones. So I went ahead and grabbed a few, and like like the problem is you can only hold it on the centralized exchange for the moment. So like whenever I do something like that, that's just like 100% like moonshot gamble. Like I'm not gonna do more than throw like a couple $100 in there because I just assume that it's lost until it pays out. I hate using centralized exchanges, but like sometimes with crypto, like you can spread out, take a few risks, and you'll still do all right even if they don't pan out. But that's me, not financial advice, PZ. But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
definitely. Well, yeah, look, I'll chuck the good old. I'll have to find that chart for Hive up in a minute. But yeah, look, definitely, if you're going to be investing in anything, don't just blindly throw your money at anything. Like, look into what you're doing, learn, what your token is, how it operates, and that kind of thing. Or else you're just gambling. And look, if you want to gamble, that's fine too. But there is method to madness at times. Um, so utilize some kind of strategy. And as I keep saying with Hive, here you can see in the chart, it's a heavy push with a big wick to the top, and then it comes down. Right? This is not that hard to figure out. It just you got to have the stones to go. Okay, well this is what's happening here, and I will release X amount of my Hive or whatever else that you're playing with, and pick it up again. Or sell out for good if you think it's going down. Like it's up to you. But if you can pick up on these patterns, because that's what it is. This is just the human condition playing out in wicks and candles. So if you can figure it out, you can profit from it. So pay attention. Learn your coins. Know what they're doing, and if they're doing something that you don't like you said, that they're pairing up with the banks or they're doing things that you don't like, well, don't invest in them. Right? Don't invest in it. If you don't like it, don't invest in it. Simple as that. And again, not financial advice. Patient zero, not financial advice at all.
PZ says he only follows your financial advice code. But yeah,
Well,
yeah. I mean, we don't gotta do crypto the whole thing. You know, Cope and I were chatting a little bit this week, and like towards the end of the last show, we were thinking about getting into like some of like the woke movement in cartoons and kids programming and shit like that. And
mhm.
I don't know if you saw recently, Cope. There was the first, like I guess, official. Like I've seen some that weren't official or whatever, but like the first like big monetized like heavily promoted trans MMA fighter versus a female fighter. And it went about like everyone expected, Cove. Like are you shocked and appalled that it wasn't a like a fair, evenly matched fight?
Well, no. I mean, it is what it is. So we've kind of like got the data for Normark, even though it's not here. States as such. So we could predict that outcome. I mean, it's like looking at this chart here and seeing the wicks. Like, if you can see it coming, do something about it.
Yeah, so it was really interesting because I actually like watched the fight and I watched like the breakdown of it, and there's like this pro MMA fighter that does commentary on this shit, and I was watching his video, and I'm just like, like he basically points out a lot of things that like I'm thinking like watching it. And the first is that the trans fighter, like the guy that's now dyed his hair pink to beat up women, under the guise of I'm a woman now. But okay, so Julia was actually telling me because I didn't know this. The guy was actually like military secret service in the U.S. Like, I mean, like this is a dude that's been training and fighting and shit for like the military. He was pretty fucking ripped and everything. And yeah, apparently dyed his hair pink. And I don't know, maybe got a boob job and decided he's gonna go beat up women for a living. But dude, but you just watch this fight, and I'm like, I'm not like an expert on MMA, but I watch fights every now and then whenever, especially for like double up when people are doing, like prediction markets on them. Right, like all I can tell you is like watching the two people, like the woman had form, like she was training, like she was mechanical and methodical in like what she was doing, like she looked like somebody that has like been training to like strike correctly, defend herself, etc. And like I mean, you can like just watch her throw like wild right hooks and like hit this dude in the face and all kind of shit. I mean, like she's wailing on this motherfucker, and she's like juking, dodging. She's like doing really well as like an actual technical fighter. And then like this dude's just like eating it all like a fucking sponge. Like it's not even phasing him. His form is like fucking terrible. He's like missing. He's just like eating punches, right? Like there's no defense. And like all he does is just sit there and like just take a beating for like several minutes while she does nothing but just like wear herself out punching something that like is obviously taking much more damage than like any female opponent that she's ever went up against. And then like once like she's like wore herself out like trying to like beat this dude to a fucking pulp, like being an actual like legitimate fighter, he just like throws a couple of like random punches in and then like gets her on the ground and chokes her out. Like dude, it's like the stupidest shit. Like you should really watch that fight, like even if you're not like into fights, just to like get an idea of like how absurd this is. Like this is the same concern that I had, right? Like you're going to have men that like are literally not trained and not skilled enough to be doing this shit, going up against women that like literally don't have like the physical power they need to compete against men in this kind of situation. And I mean, it's not like a talking trash about women type thing, but I mean, like the biology is there. Like men are built to, like get fucking hit in the face repeatedly and fight things. I mean, like that's biology. Like traditionally, women were kind of especially like if you go back into like tribal times, like women weren't like weak or anything like that. They were generally like almost matriarchs. Like they were like the wise people and stuff like that. They would raise the kids, they would take care of the tribe. The men would go out and be the hunter gatherers. I mean like it makes sense. Like this is how we evolved. Now whenever you take one of the sexes that is built for like the brute force, like strength approach, and you put them up against the one that isn't, it's just not a fair situation. Even if the brute force approach type individual now identifies as the other type of individual, it's not a fair level playing field. And I think like putting this stuff up at these levels of like, the pinnacle of athletic performances, it's just not even right. Dude, like to put this in context, like after this dude sat there and like ate knees to the face, getting punched in the fucking face like repeatedly, getting elbows. I mean, like if this was a woman, like that woman would have been fucking destroyed because like this chick knew what she was doing, right? Like she was pretty fucking solid with all of her fighting and moving and defense. All it took was this dude landing a few punches, choking her ass out, and like she's literally puking fucking blood on the mat, like as they're saying this dude's like won. And this is a fight. Like I'm just like, how do you even put this shit on TV and charge people for it? Like this is just stupid.
hmm Well, first of all, let me say, are you saying that men and women are different? How dare you? That's offensive, right? Get work. But yeah, look, like you said, there's differences there. We have to acknowledge them. It's not about sexism or any isms, is and that kind of thing. It's just things are different, right? And I guess for me, the question is just like, why would you like play the game? Why would you fight? You know what I mean? Like, you know that this is what's going on here. Um, if you have that knowledge, why would you even step into the ring? Because I know that, like, and of course, we're talking about people that would kick both our asses, probably everybody's ass in the audience, right? So we're not sort of like, trained fighters or anything. But, if you asked me to challenge a professional in anything that I'm an amateur in, or even if we're not at the same level, like if I'm, ranked midfield and this person is like top of the pops, if you will, I just go like, you know what, this guy's going to kick my fucking ass. Like, no, thank you. I will pass. No, thank you. So on this level here, it's like, well, if nobody will fight them, right? Then what's going to happen? That's like, what will happen? Like, answer me this question. If nobody fights these people, what's going to happen? They'll have to create their own league, right? Where everything's, level playing field, where these differences aren't so extreme that you have this kind of outcome. Because realistically, what we're pointing towards is somebody's going to get fucking killed here, right? And then someone's going to say something, right? Then something's going to happen. Then we're going to create, they have to be in their own category, blah, blah. Then it's going to happen. Like, fuck off, man. Like, let's get ahead of the game here. We can see what's coming, right? Let's intervene before there's a huge problem that it'll be tragic if that happens. But that's what we're barreling towards here, right?
That was actually like what I told Julie earlier whenever she was showing me like the quote unquote pre-transition picture. Which, dude, like I'm looking at that motherfucker and like the transition was you dyed your hair pink and maybe like pop some estrogen. Like that's still the same, dude. But anyway, yeah, I mean like that was like my exact thoughts is like women are going to get fucking killed over this shit. Like, and I'm not saying that because I don't think women are, anything like that, but I don't think it's a fair competition. And I think that this, like, just fucking point blank proves it. Like, dude, if they show that fight to a woman and say that you gotta go fight this dude next, like, dude, I'm gonna be like, who the fuck's signing up for this? Like I imagine like they probably coerced that chick, like threw a lot of money at her, but then like you gotta also consider the social backlash if you refuse to take the fight. Like it's probably gonna be like career over, right? Like
Yeah, but
imagine like the social media outlash, everybody's gonna be calling her a fucking transphobe. Like it would probably kill her career to not take the fight is my point. Like
mm,
it's not like you just get to pick and choose. And I mean I understand what I'm saying there. Like, yes, you can choose to say no, but like, imagine being somebody that has like spent your whole fucking life training and working towards this goal, and then you're gonna lose it all because you refuse to fight a man. Like that's the
yeah.
situation that these chicks are gonna find themselves in my opinion. And I think that's probably what happened at this fight. They probably said like, look, this is your next opponent. And, when she started asking questions, they were like, well, you can take it or leave it, but, like you leave it, like this is most likely what's going to happen. Like people are going to call you a transphobe, you're going to get canceled on social media, your career is over, and all
Mhm.
the shit you've been working for your whole life is just gone. Like how is that fair?
Well, it's not fair, right? But here's the thing. Here's the options, right? You can die on that hill, right? Or you can die, right? Like, which option are you going to take? And this is what it comes down to for me. And I think, I don't know, maybe we're getting away from ourselves in our mentality, our ego, and that kind of thing. But like, is it better to live and have people saying things about you and that kind of stuff? And let's be real here. Like, nobody on this planet is liked by everyone. There's people, like, whether you want to admit it or not, there's people that don't like you and they're probably saying mean things about you. And you can care about it or you can not care about it. And if you're going to care about it, right, and continue down this path, Izzy, well, it is what it is. Like, you're actively making that decision. But I would rather say, you know what, you can keep the fucking career, you can keep all that kind of shit. I'm not doing this thing because it goes against my principles, it goes against what I believe in, or I'm not going to put myself in a dangerous situation where I might die due to the fact of, people's opinions and these kinds of things. And of course, it is on a like completely different level, right? But it's kind of like the same scenario with what I went through with science is like once I started seeing the way that it was being utilized, and I'm just like, dude, like I've studied for X amount of time to do this thing, and now I get here, and the whole thing's a fucking illusion, pretty much, because you're manipulating science to say what you want to say, blah blah blah. Like I don't want any part of this, right? So the amount of money that I paid to study, the time that I put into it, blah blah, etc. I ended up just going, what, fuck this shit, it's not worth it. Like I don't want a part of it. I don't want a bar of it. Don't want to be associated with it. No, thank you, right? And I left it. And I understand that that's not easy to do for some people because if they're passionate and they're committed and they love the thing that they do, blah blah, etc. Okay, well, you can be a trainer, you can do other things, but at least you're still going to be alive. At least you're not going against the things that you believe in. At least you stand by the person that you are and do what you do. I think we need more of that in the world, right? Because, like I said, like just imagine if this was the actual fight where this woman died, right? Would it still be worth it? Would rather be alive, right, and called a homophobe, transphobe, like whatever phobe, right, or dead? I know which way I'd lean.
Well, and look, like, just for clarification, you're preaching to the choir here, right? Like, I mean, I found myself in a very similar situation. I did the whole school thing. I have a degree in business management and economics. I had jobs, like I had technically like good jobs, like the kind that you're supposed to get for like the white picket fence and 2.5 kids and retirement and all that bullshit. And yeah, like I left it because it didn't make me happy. And I do think that ultimately everybody has to figure that out for themselves. Um, I don't know if it's exactly a direct comparison in a situation like this, because you got to keep in mind too that like this isn't a situation that like they knew about going into it, right? Like this isn't like this is new, right? Like this was literally like the first big fight. So I mean, take into consideration this chick's probably been training for. I mean, she's what, like in her 20s, Julia? I mean, she's probably been training for at least 15, maybe 20 years, probably since she was like, teenage age or earlier. Like she's been training for this, right? Like this is what she loves, this is what she's passionate about. She wants to be a female MMA fighter. Okay, and then like, okay, here's your chance, this is going to be your big break, but it turns out like the person you're fighting wasn't always a woman, and like here's who they used to be used to be before they dyed their hair pink. And I don't know, man, like I think it's kind of a shitty situation. And yeah, like I mean, like I said, clearly like the option is there that you can just be like, fuck it. I've spent the majority of my life working towards this. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what I care about. But I'm just gonna walk away from it because I disagree. Yeah, like that's always an option. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I can see why they probably wouldn't want to do that, especially if they, like I said, they've been spending the majority of their life working to getting to where they're at. And then, it's like, okay, all of a sudden the goalpost changed. I mean, at that point, I would probably be calling bullshit, but, you know, not everybody has that same mentality. And who knows? Like, maybe there was some ego involved. Like, maybe that chick really thought she could take him. I mean, like, I've seen some of those, like, MMA fighting females that I'd be like, I don't think I really want to fight them because, like, one, they know what the hell they're doing. But, too, I mean, like, they're not going to be like a fucking pushover in a fight, right? Like, I mean, I've joked around about like fighting Krim or fighting Julia before, but I mean, like, come on, I'm not really going to like sit there and try to hurt either one of those people. But, yeah, I mean, like, when you're getting into a ring with somebody like this, where like your goal is to literally like incapacitate the other person so you win, I mean, it's just insanity, dude. Like, uh, I don't get it, man. I mean, like there's no playing around about this. It's not like sportsmanship. It's literally like this guy dyed his fucking hair pink, beat the shit out of this chick to where she was puking blood, and it didn't matter like how good of a fighter she was, like how technically accurate she was, how good her defense was. At some point, you start getting worn down. I mean, like it's just like running. Like if you go outside and run as fast as you can, eventually you're gonna start slowing down, right? I mean, like your body isn't just made to like fucking full blast for 30 minutes straight. So, like, even though this chick knows what she's doing, she's good, she's trained, I mean, she's landing her fucking punches. She kneed him in the face twice, if I remember correctly. Dude, like, imagine this. Like, she fucking full force knees this dude in the chin, pops his head back, and he just, like, rolls it straight back down and goes back to it. Like, nothing. Not even fucking phased. I mean, like, getting kneed in the fucking chin or getting, like, elbowed in the head are, like, two of the hardest, hits you can take in MMA. And, like, this chick did both and just, like, nothing. Like, doesn't even phase this motherfucker. like, that's my point. Like, I'm like, there was. I don't see how there was any way this could have possibly been fair, is my point. I mean, like, dude, you can't, like, put two women that are, like, equally like skilled, equally, like built up their pain tolerance, stuff like that together, and think that like they can sit there and like throw at each other like that and not feel it. But dude, like this chick was like landing punch after punch right in this motherfucker's face. He has like no defense. He's just like sitting there, like just eating all these punches, eating all these hits straight to the head, like not even phased. It doesn't work like that in a legit fair fighting match. I mean, like you can even put like big fucking heavyweights up. Like go back to like fucking Tex versus what was his name, like Sliver or whatever. I mean, like you can see like these two big motherfuckers like sitting there wailing on each other. It takes a toll. Like even if you're built like a fucking tank, if you've got like two tanks sitting there just like pounding each other, they're gonna get worn out. They're gonna take some damage. This chick was throwing the fucking kitchen sink at this dude, not even phased. Like you couldn't even tell this dude was taking damage. And like that's my point. Like, how are they going to say that this is like a legitimate, fair thing and normalize this? But then, like to transition, I guess, a little bit into the other topic we were talking about with like the woke tunes, you now have shit like Blues Clues, like preaching the fucking transgender to toddlers. I mean, like, I don't think that this problem's going to go away. I think it's going to escalate. And I mean, I hope like hell it doesn't take, people watching women getting beaten to death on live TV to get the point across, but dude, it's not right. It's not fair. And like, dude, I don't like, there was nothing entertaining about that to me. Like, that was just sad. I'm like sitting there like, why is this even happening? And you know why it's happening? Because one, they're pushing this fucking agenda, and two, they know like the outrage and shit's gonna sell tickets. Like literally, that's all it is. It's a business move. They're gonna be like, "Look how woke
Hmm.
we are. We got a trans fighter. Watch him kill a woman on TV. Yay! Everybody buy a pay-per-view."
Exactly right. And it's all about the bottom line, the dollar bills, y'all. But yeah, rolling back to something you were saying there before in regards to fighting and that kind of thing, it's difficult enough to establish fighting classes with the men's and the women's individually, right? Because it's a very difficult thing to do because you got like weight plays a big part, your height, reach, these kinds of things, and we've been sort of like struggling to make it level for ages, and we kind of like got it okay now. Like the guys have to be about the same height, about the same weight, about the same this, and there's differences. You're allowed to have some differences there, but generally the same. Because what started off happening when MMA first started coming about, it was just you're a dude, get in the fucking ring and fucking fight. That's it. Doesn't matter, big, small, yeah, it doesn't matter. Just get in there and fight. And people were getting fucking demolished, right? So they said, okay, listen, we can't have this. This is just like craziness. So we have to establish classes and these kinds of things, blah blah, etc. So it's hard enough to do that on its own, right? With just the men or just the women, without having this unknown factor thrown in. Well, I mean, it's pretty well known, but we're going to call it an unknown factor, um, and expect things to pan out here, right? Like there would have to be a hell of a lot of mathematics to be done to make sure that the fight is equal between the two people. It's just impossible mathematics right now. So I don't even know why we're doing it. It's almost as terrible as putting out some medical shit into people's arms when we haven't been tested properly. But that's another subject altogether. Um, but yeah, look, what you're saying there is 100% correct when it comes to that dude just absorbing the punches, right? Because there's this. I don't know if you're like a gym person. I'm not really a gym person myself, but I had mates that are gym people, and there's this exercise that you do where you get like the weights that you can lift on a like the bench press, right? So you push as hard as you can with the weights that you got on there, right? Until you're tired and you can't really do it anymore. Then you take some weight off and then you go again. Then you take some weight off and you go again until you're just lifting the bar. And when you get to the bar, you can't even lift the bar, like a bar, right? Without any weights on it. It's impossible to lift it. Why? Because you tired yourself out, right? So what it sounds like in this fight that you're talking about here is this dude was just basically just biding his time. He was just waiting. He's like, yeah, throw a couple punches, look like I'm doing something. Just let her tire herself out, right? And when she's like completely exhausted, when she can't lift the bar anymore, that's when it's time for me to lay the smack down. And from what you're saying, there was no real form. Like there was a huge difference in the form and the technical ability from one to the other. And this dude was like, all right, well, I'm not really technical, so I'll just wait till this person gets super tired, and then I'll throw some pretty loose punches and knock him the fuck out. Is that about the up and down of it, left and right of it?
Well, okay, so to put that in context, like that is a legitimate fighting strategy, right? Like there are people that will like literally sit there and like bob and weave and like juke around and like wear the other opponent out. But what you don't see is like go watch like any boxing match, like right, like watch like Floyd Mayweather, for example. Like Floyd Mayweather is a good example of somebody that kind of does what you're talking about. Like he'll dodge around, he's really good at like not taking damage while like letting the opponent wear themselves out and kind of like calculating their movements and shit like that. And like he's made a career of it. I mean, he's arguably like one of the best fighters in the world. Like he's proven like this is a viable strategy. What you don't see is Floyd Mayweather getting punched in the face 100 fucking times in a row and then knocking his opponent out. Well, he's never been like a real knockout fighter. He's more technical, but he does have some knockouts. But like my point being, like yes, that's a viable strategy, but like that strategy doesn't include like letting somebody sit there and just like punch you in the face repeatedly, like knee you in the chin and like throw elbows at you. Like you're not taking damage. Like the whole point of that strategy is to avoid taking damage while the other person, like tires themselves out. My point is like this dude didn't have to have any skill to do any of that. Like all he did was sit there and just like let her punch him in the fucking face repeatedly until she's like, I'm not doing anything. Like like this is hopeless. And then like once it got to that point after several minutes of just like getting welled on, finally like throws a couple of punches in. Like the first two punches like were basically enough to like knock this chick half stupid. Then just get her on the ground, and then like once you're on top of her, I mean it's kind of game over, right? I mean, like that's the thing, right? Like whenever you like heavily outclass somebody like that, I mean, like say that I'm fighting somebody like Julia, right? Like Julia's a very like small alien. So like if let's say I'm trying to fight Julia, right? And then like she's punching me in the face like 100 times, I'm like okay, like ouch, ouch, whatever. And then finally like I just sock her one good fucking time, and it kind of like knocks her silly for a second, and then all I gotta do is like jump on top of her, and then like okay, you're not getting me off of you, right? Like it's just not gonna happen. But like my point is that like in a fight like this, it's not like an actual like fair competitive athletic event. What it is this dude dyed his fucking hair pink, beat the shit out of this chick on TV for money, and people are saying that it's so brave, like thanks for coming out and like being the first like trans MMA athlete and like a real fight and all this kind of shit. And I'm just like, dude, like I really I really do think that's what's going to happen, Cope. I think you're going to see a man like literally beat a fucking woman to death for pay-per-views, and like that's what it's going to take for people to realize like how seriously stupid this shit is. Like even though I disagreed with the whole like Laurel Hubbard situation, right? Like you're gonna put a fucking man that's been doing weightlifting that fucking failed at it in the now like the woman category, right? So now going to compete against women and then still fucking failed, right? But like, see, this isn't like a one versus one, like man versus woman competition. Like this is a group of people all doing the same thing to see who's better. Like whenever you're like pitting, like imagine trying to get like an all-female football team together to go play against like an NFL team. Like, how do you think that's going to turn out? Like at best, somebody's going to get seriously fucking injured. But like at worst, like somebody's probably going to like literally get their fucking head snapped, like extreme whiplash getting tackled. It's not logical. I don't. it's kind of like mind-boggling that this is where we're at as a society. That like not only is this being done, not only is this being like promoted, but like people are glorifying it. You know, like this person's like some kind of fucking hero for dyeing their hair pink and beating a chick, half to death on TV. Like literally, the chick was puking fucking blood after the match, and she only got hit twice. Like from what I saw, like she wasn't like getting hit regularly. She was really good at dodging, really good at defending herself. It took like a couple of punches, then got choked out, and was like literally puking fucking blood after the match. I'm just like, how much more of this do you need to see to realize that it's not right and it's not fair?
Definitely. And yeah, look, I guess the thing is here with this particular fight, at least she had the knowledge beforehand that that's what she was going up against. I recall another fight a while ago, and I think it was like a reaction from Joe Rogan in regards to Fallon Fox, I believe is this person's name, and the female fighter had no idea jumping into the ring that this person was trans, male to female, and got the shit kicked out of her, right? And this is what I mean. Like, at least in this situation, this person knew what was going on and had the ability to say no, to see that it was okay. Well, this is a situation that you're in. Do you think it's unfair? Do you think it is fair? It's up to you. You make a decision. Whereas with this other example I'm giving you here at the moment, there was none of that, right? There was none of that at all. It was business as usual as far as the other person was concerned. And then like this happened, it was just like couldn't even see it coming, right? So I see it as like, well, for the lack of better wording, progress from one fight to the other. But I still think that the means to tackle this appropriately is to just back out and say no. Like, I'm not fucking doing it. Not having a bar of it, and find someone else to fight, right? Because, like you said, it's going to end up getting to a point where someone's going to get seriously either hurt, as in like crippled for life, kind of thing, or death. And that's going to be when people go like, oh, well, we didn't really know. We don't have the data and that kind of thing. Oh, well, maybe we should do something about it. Well, how about we just stop doing it right now before we get to that point where it's the point of no return? I don't know. It just makes sense to me, right?
Well, my big question here is like, why can't those two fight each other?
Exactly.
Would that counteract the whole point of dyeing your hair pink and beating up women if the other woman was also a man too?
Well, that's to my point as well, and it would also like, and I know this is going to be controversial for me to say, right? It would also weed out individuals that are making the transition solely to win medals, to be top of the class because that's what they dreamed they would do, blah blah, etc. Now I know it's hard to hear, but there are some people that will go to any extremes to get to their goal, to do what they want to do. They will lie, kill, steal, cheat, doesn't matter, right? This is not an extreme compared to those things, right? There are people out there that will do these kinds of things. Now, if we have their own categories, right, that means that people that are doing that specifically for that reason, to, like you were saying, like the weightlifting thing, can't cut it as a male one, make the transition and succeed as a female one. Okay, that's going to pull that out. And then people that are genuinely transitioning have a sport they can play in, blah, 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 etc. No problems. Everybody's happy, right? But even the mere mention of that means that I'm a white supremacist, transphobe, blah, blah, etc. for something that genuinely makes sense, right? Like if this is the situation that's playing out here, where males who transition into females are dominating these fields, well, then shouldn't they play against each other? Or does that not make sense?
Well,
I don't know.
I think part of the problem here is, right, like people try to compare this situation to something like go back in time to where like, black people had to get on the back of the bus type situation, right? Like they're trying to say like we're not creating like, fair opportunities, things like that. But here's to me like the biggest indicator that this is not the same situation. How many women have you seen transitioning to men go try to compete against men in the MMA Cup?
Well, it's similar to the stat that I asked if anybody knew as well, whereas like we see men transitioning to females and dominating their fields in like weightlifting, MMA, all these kinds of things. Have we seen that happen the other way around, where females transition to males and them going into the sports and dominating their field? Because if that's like a very simple means by looking and going, okay, well, we see, none, or we see some, or we have some kind of data, Norma, to be able to, have some kind of like information in regards to this. If it's all one way, then it's pretty clear what's going on here, right?
Right, and to me, like, that's the point, right? Like, if this was something that was happening both ways, then it wouldn't even be a conversation. And, like, I hate that I always feel the need to clarify this, but, like, I'm not somebody that hates transsexual people. Like, whatever. I'm like, dude, what you do with your own body, how you want to live your life, I'm fine with it. Whenever we're doing shit like this that's just fucking stupid and dangerous and gonna get people killed, I'm like, like that's no longer like you just embracing yourself and, doing your thing. That is now you imposing your autonomy on other people. And yes, we can go back and say, like, sure, you can throw your whole fucking life and all the shit you worked for away and just say, like, no, I refuse to do it. And you know what? Like, I honestly, I hope enough women do it to make them realize how stupid this shit is. But like in my opinion, unless you get like the biggest female fighters, right? Like Ronda Rousey's kind of like died off now, but like like at one time, like Ronda Rousey was probably like the most well-known female fighter in the world. Yeah, I mean, like so take somebody like that in their prime, right? Because let's take the logical conclusion that this dude's gonna beat up enough women to get a title fight, if they allow it to keep going like this. Like imagine like they get to the champ, right? And the champ just like says like I will literally throw my fucking career away before I do this stupid shit. Like that's the kind of shit that it's gonna take to like actually get them to care. Like whenever you're talking about like up and coming people that are just trying to get their name out there, trying to get known, yeah, you're gonna have a lot of women that have been like working and like trying to get there that are gonna be like, look, here's your shot. Like it's to go back to the crypto thing we were talking about earlier, like here's your shot. It's not how you wanted it, but it's what you wanted, right? And then like they're gonna be like, well, fuck, so this is the result. You have a woman getting her fucking ass kicked on TV and then puking blood because she got beat up by a fucking dude that didn't even know how to fight. And yeah, I mean, I think the simple fact that you don't see this happening both ways is why this conversation needs to be had. If we saw, like regular, like average women, like transitioning to be men, and then like they're gonna go compete. Like, dude, tell me any chick, like I don't care how much testosterone you pump into her ass, like how many weights she lifts, she's gonna go be a fucking lineman in the NFL. Like it's a joke. Dude, like I actually saw a chick today because I went to the store and like, dude, this chick was like straight up at least 6 feet tall because like we were like looking like eye to eye and I'm like, holy shit. But like even that, dude, like I mean, it's not even like seriously. Like if it came to a fight, like it'd be a joke. Like the chick probably weighed like 130, 140 pounds at 6 feet tall. And I'm just like, I'm mind boggled that we even have to have these conversations. But like, that's the point. Like, if you don't have these conversations, then nothing ever changes. And if you do have the conversations, like the public outrage, you're gonna get canceled. The fucking, you're a Nazi because you want to accept people, blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, like I have no problem accepting you, but like, whenever it comes to the point that you're like literally just trying to kill a chick on TV for money, I'm like, I think maybe we need to reevaluate the situation a little bit.
A little bit. You mean a lot. But all right, so let's dial it to the toon sides of things because we're dealing with the adult side of things. But the discussion, or at least the part of the discussion that we were having, started with the whole woke tunes things, which is what's a little bit more concerning, right? Is the fact that we're trying to get children who should be, kicking a ball in the park or just not worrying about adult things because they're kids, right? They're kids. But we're trying to get them to, understand these kinds of things as well as kinks and sexualities and all these kinds of things, and it's just beyond what needs to be on the plate of a child, right? Because we're talking these cartoons are aimed between, I don't know, a couple of years old to like 10 years old, I think maybe 12 years old, and we're seeing like a lot more of this wokeness, as we like to put it, being injected into these things to a point where it's beyond, like, the cartoon is no longer what it used to be. Right. In this particular example here with the link that I shared, the guy says that Blue's Clues used to be about the main dude. He lost his glue stick, and Blue knows where the glue stick is, and he leaves clues on how to get to the glue stick instead of just telling the dude where the glue stick is, and that's the whole episode, right? But now we've got to see all this, like you were saying, the parade episode and these kinds of things. It's like, dude, like, kids don't need to be thinking about this kind of shit, right? But I do believe it's part of the process of making what we're talking about here with the MMA stuff be normalized for this generation when they get to our age. You know what I mean?
Yeah, holy shit, Julia found one. Apparently, there is a transgender woman that beat a man in a fight. Yeah. No. Let's put up. Let's put them up against the best in the world, Julia. Let's see how this works out.
Oh, but that's the thing. Like, winning is one thing, but dominating, breaking records,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Because, like, for the weightlifting class you were discussing, right? The person that came in just smashed every single fucking record in, like, pretty much one lift, right? That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. Because, like, let's be clear here, right? If I was to go up against any of these female MMA fighters, I would get the shit kicked out of me. No diggity, no doubt, right? I know this, man, right? So yeah, women can kick the shit out of men all day, every day, twice on Sunday, right? That's not the question. The question is more, are they, the champion of the world, breaking the records, doing things that have never been done before in women's sport? Because that is what's happening.
Yeah, man, it's just bonkers to me, dude. But to go back over the whole woke cartoon thing, just to clarify, like, if you guys are unfamiliar with Blue's Clues, like, Blue's Clues is literally targeted towards toddlers. Like, I mean, it's like for like learning how to speak age. Like, if you're following my drift here, right? Like, this is like early child development type TV show, or at least it was once upon a time. Like when I was growing up, like it'd be like, here's your clues, like here's the word house on the screen, like, and there's like a picture of a house. Like it's teaching kids like simple, like mnemonic things and like, associating words with pictures, shit like that. And now, we actually talked about this maybe like a couple of months ago whenever it happened. But yeah, like, so for Pride Month or whatever, Blues Clues decided they were going to like literally throw a pride parade, which happened to be less about like, gay and lesbian stuff and a lot more about transsexuality for some reason. Which, just to clarify, if you guys aren't 100% familiar, uh, there is like a pretty large segment of the like gay and lesbian community that do not like trans being associated with it. But anyway, so during Pride Month, Blue's Clues put out an episode where it's literally like a whole trans pride parade. Like there was a manatee or an otter or something like that that like literally had like mastectomy scars from where they were transitioning. The little song they're singing is about like kids having two moms and shit like that. And they show the fuck, what's that shit called? The brony shit, My Little Pony, whatever. On that thumbnail, like they were pointing out how like some of the, I guess like some of the ponies had like a mom and an aunt, or like two moms or whatever. It's just wild, right? Like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like that's such a weird fucking like topic to approach, right? I mean, like at some point, like I don't think it's necessarily like damaging to like make kids aware of things like homosexuality, but like at the same time, like do I think you need toddlers watching trans pride parades? I feel like maybe that's like reaching a little bit, but again, you gotta think like bigger picture, like what's the agenda here, right? And I mean, obviously, normalization can really be like the only end goal of doing something like this, right? Like, you want to raise kids to not only like accept, but to like, I guess like consider this shit from the age of like 3 and up. That's a weird situation. And then, like, if you look at the example that they gave with Arthur, like Arthur is like one of those fucking cartoons that was around when I was a kid, right? But now, like the clip that they were showing, it's like transitioned into like this woke cartoon. They're talking about, like racial violence and all kind of shit. And I'm just like sitting here like, seriously? Like you're taking what used to be like kids' educational TV shows and like you're pushing all of these like political agendas into them. I'm like, it's no longer about things like teaching kids about morality and like education, and it's now about like pushing political agendas on, like preteen all the way down to toddlers. I mean, like you're literally like pushing the shit on kids. I mean, look, I don't know how much you guys remember about being a kid, but I mean, like, you're kind of like trying to figure out your place in the world, right? Like, you're kind of trying to like work through your shit, figure out who you are, who you want to be. I mean, like, most of us don't even really get there until we're adults. But like, it's a developmental age. Like the shit that you see, the things you experience can like very much shape and kind of like steer the direction of your own development. Like I'm serious. Like I really wonder what's going to happen, in a few generations down the road whenever we've moved into this like mainstream normalization of statistically very small outliers, right? I mean, it's just weird, man. Like I can understand like even to some extent, like having like racial conversations maybe, like with the Arthur thing, I think they kind of took it to a weird extreme. But like if you want to like teach something with like kids to not like hate people that like look different than you, stuff like that. I mean, like that makes sense. Whenever you want to start, going critical fucking race theory on a, like a Saturday morning cartoon, I'm just like, what the fuck? But I mean, we're doing it in the schools too. The schools are teaching critical race theory. Like this idea that like white people are bad and have been subjugating black people through all of history. I'm like, as long as you perpetuate that idea, it's gonna keep fucking happening. Like, dude, it's not like that anymore. But like, watch mainstream media and like watch the public narrative on all the the broadcast channels and shit like that. You'd think that's all there is out there. And I mean, like, I understand for somebody like Breeze, it's slightly different. Like they're still having like reverse apartheid down there. But I mean, like in the U.S., like pushing this agenda, like there's just like white people like walking around like looking to lynch black people every chance they get. Dude, like that does nothing but fucking stir up hostility and animosity and division. And that's the point, division politics. Keep them separate so that we can keep ruling them and controlling their lives. But man, like, fuck me, dude. Like, they're starting kind of early. If you're teaching fucking toddlers to embrace transsexuality, and then you're whenever they get to like 5 or 6, you're now teaching them that like black people have been criminally oppressed throughout all of history, and like you need to save them. Like, dude, like black people are completely fucking normal human beings just like the rest of us. And whenever you like look down your nose at them like they're some kind of like damaged and like they need our help, like to me, I mean that's the most racist shit you can do. Like, don't look at them as like somebody that can't fucking be a human being and take care of themselves. Like, I mean, I've had plenty of black friends growing up. I've had plenty of black people work with me. And dude, like, it never goes through my fucking mind that like I need to cater and change the way that I approach these individuals than I do with any other human being. Like, I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, whatever. Like, if you come to a job, do the fucking job. And if you don't want to do the job, then get the fuck out. Like, your skin color is irrelevant in that regard to me. But yeah, just like watching these agendas they push. Fuck, dude. I mean, I feel like they're starting really early in the division politics.
Yeah, for sure. And this is something that kind of like boggles my mind as well, because we've had a discussion in the past in regards to like sex education in schools and that kind of thing. And we're saying it doesn't belong there. It doesn't belong in the schools, but it's all over the fucking TV, right? And from an infant age, not from a schooling age. And like, you get where I'm coming from here. If we're saying that we can't teach kids that are sort of like coming into puberty and that kind of thing about their bodies and how it works and that kind of thing in the schools, then why the fuck are we giving it to kids that are like from infant to 10 years old, right? in their cartoons, and while they're having their morning cereals, they're eating their fucking Fruit Loops and learning about kinks and that kind of stuff. Like that's not necessary, right? But we can't teach kids in school about like normal sexual reproduction and that kind of stuff. It doesn't make any sense. But like, it doesn't have to make sense to me, I guess, whatever. But my perspective on these kinds of things when it comes to kids, because like people are saying like, oh well, the kids have to know because they're going to be out there and they're going to see two men holding hands and they're going to have questions. And it's like, okay, well, if they have questions, let them fucking ask it. Right? Don't sit there and force it down their throats and say, hey, look at this and blah 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 blah, because you're actually bringing it to their attention. If they see something and they ask a question, this is about anything. This is like my perspective on kids, Cope and his upbringing of kids. But if they ask, then explain it to them as neutrally as possible. For some of these things, and for a lot of these things, they can make up their own minds. But when it comes to stuff like kink and all that kind of stuff, if they manage to catch a Blue's Clues and they see the shit and they're like, hey man, what's this kink stuff they're talking about? Well, you should probably respond with some of these things. That's stuff that adults do, and you'll learn about it when you become an adult, right? That's what I got told when I was a kid, and I was asking questions about things that were just a little bit beyond sort of like my age bracket. That's what I was told, and sure enough, when I became an adult, I learned about these things, and a lot of the things I didn't want to learn and I didn't want to see, but I saw them anyway, right? That's just the reality of life. But I think we need to take a little bit more of a realistic approach with this kind of stuff and not force things onto people too early. Like we're saying, like kids, from 0 to 10 don't need to know about sexuality, kinks, and that kind of stuff. And if they do bring it up, like I said, just answer it like nice and simple, no problems. But dude, kick a ball, like have some fun, like go find the glue stick with blue, right? We don't need parade shit. We don't need all that kind of stuff. Just relax. We don't need it.
Yeah, sorry, and that was my problem with this earlier, right? I mean, I feel like, yeah, like I get it, right? Like we are all responsible for our own choices and shit like that. I do feel like there's a coercion factor here. Right? Like I feel like you take somebody that's been working so hard towards something, like dedicating the majority of their life to like training and, like getting themselves into like the peak physical, you know, position to be in this situation, not to mention like the training of how to like defend themselves, like how to strike effectively, like all of this stuff. Like you can watch that fight, like I linked a lot of the breakdown of it up there earlier, but like you can watch this chick, like she's very good at what she does. She's very good at defending herself. Like this dude's like, like if this was a fair fight, like he was done. Like it was fucking toast. Like there was just no way. But like literally, she's like just sitting there like wailing on him over and over again. She's landing all of her punches, like she's dodging his, defending herself like perfectly. I mean, she like if this would have went to points, like I promise you, she won that fight. But like obviously it couldn't go to points, because like as soon as like she started getting like a little gassed out, all it took was like a 1-2 combo. She's like basically knocked silly, and then just get her on the ground and fucking choke her out, like game over. Like it was not a fair fight in my opinion. Like just watch the breakdown and tell me what you think. But yeah, I do think there's like some kind of coercion factor in this. Whenever you like put somebody in that position that like this is what you've been training for, you've been working your life towards this, like this is what you wanted, and then it's like, oh, but by the way, you got to fight a man instead of the woman that you've been training to fight against. It's like, so you can go ahead and throw away all your dreams, all that effort, sunk cost fallacy, whatever. You can throw that all away and just say you don't want to do it. I mean, we understand. But, like your career's over. So, I mean, to me, like, is it all that different from like the, like the male-female workplace dynamic where like the boss can like basically sexually, like advance on the woman that's, like at a lower rank because, well, it's like you can do it or I can fire you. I mean, it's like, yeah, I understand you might not want to, like blow me in my office, like anytime I ask, but, like alternatively, you can just go find another job, and like to me, like it's not all that different, except this time it's violence instead of sex. Like that's my thoughts on this thing. It's the same kind of coercion. It's the same kind of like power imbalance. Maybe not like exactly the same as like having like a a male or female above you in the workplace that can like, kind of like coerce you into sex. But I mean, like this is definitely like a coercive violence situation. I don't think it's fair. That's the best way I can put it. Like I feel like this is an absurd situation to even be put in the first place. And then there's also the factor. It's like, yeah, you can walk away, you can throw your career away, whatever. But like somebody else is gonna do it. Like they're just gonna keep asking until they get a woman to agree to fight this dude.
Yeah, but at least it's not going to be you, right? And I think that's what it comes down to, is being able to like make those decisions. And sometimes it means walking away from something that you love, that you're passionate about, that you wanted to spend your life doing, and that kind of thing. Um, just again dialing it back to what I was discussing before with the whole psychology side of things. The reason why I left is because like I became trained to do these things, and I wasn't like a psychologist as in like sit down and tell me your problems kind of thing. I was basically data and research. So the data comes in front of me, I process it with SPSS and that kind of thing, and punch out. So the sciencey side of things, not the feely side of things. And what I found was in the field, the work that you get is not the work that you want, right? Because for me, I wanted to change the world and help people and these kinds of things. But what it came down to is I had to choose a number of choices I just really didn't want to make, to be honest. And I've discussed the whole porn thing before, processing that kind of data where it's kind of like, the searches, the frequencies, that kind of thing, using eye mapping to see where people look while they're watching porn. That doesn't mean that I watch porn, but I was setting up all these the data and information that came to me. Like, I don't want to do that, right? That's not something that I want to do, but that's where the money was at the time, because who makes a lot of money? All these places, and they want to spend their money to research stuff. And who else wants to spend money to fuck people over? Essentially, is what it comes down to. People who own gambling machines, right? They're slot machines, I believe you call them over there. We call them pokies over here in Australia. And the jobs that you get there, essentially, are how do you get people addicted to playing your game, right? You research the sounds, the environment, what kind of lighting is good, right? What has people sitting at that level where they're kind of like awake but asleep, right? That's where you want to get the people. And this is the data that I'm collecting and processing, right? I don't want to do that. This is not what I signed up for, right? But they're the jobs that are there because these industries make a lot of money, and they spend that money to find out how to make more money, right, in their industry, which means that they're paying psychologists and that kind of thing to process a whole bunch of data to do these kinds of things. Now, as I said, um, what did I sign up for? Patient Zero. Well, like I said, I signed up because I wanted to help people. I wanted to have a look at psychological consequences of doing particular things, blah blah, etc. But not this kind of stuff, right? This is not the stuff that I wanted to sign up for. So to give you an example, right, with the gambling thing, right? So the gambling industry, what I wanted to do is help people with gambling addiction, right? Go in and talk to them about what they're going through, their problems, that kind of thing. Find out that information and process that kind of data so we can help people move towards losing that addiction more effectively, right? Because there's plenty of people that are addicted to gambling. But to do that job, you get paid like basically minimum wage, the median, which is 50 to 55K and under. And this is Aussie dollars, not US dollars, because I know that that's happened a few times. I expressed this and people are like, oh, well, that's pretty good money. Well, the Aussie dollar isn't as high. But anyway, it is what it is. But if you want to take this this job that I was talking about, where you basically figure out how to get people more addicted to your games and they have to come back and play more, well, that job pays 120K plus car plus computer plus phone plus expenses plus bonuses plus this plus that plus 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 plus. So it ends up being like a 220K job, 230K job. If you want to fuck people over, if you want to help people, well, you got to basically scrape by, and that's just not what I wanted to do, right? So, like I said. And of course, it is a very different thing. I know there's no violence involved in that kind of thing, but it's more down the psychology path where, well, I studied for X amount of time. I spent a bunch of money, if you will, training to do a particular job and that kind of thing. And then when I got out into the workforce, I found that the work was lacking, right? That it was not possible to do what I wanted to do in that field. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to basically sell my soul to the devil and do this shitty work and get paid well for it, because that's just not what I want to do. And at the same time, I can't really live on the bottom end of the scale and it's also very difficult work. But anyway, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just not going to do it. And I just abandoned that whole thing, even though I'd spent X amount of time getting there. That's a similar thing, like psychologically speaking, for people that, like you're saying, they've trained for X amount of time, blah, 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 etc. It means you've got to abandon that, right? And it can be difficult, but there's better things to do. And the stakes are a lot higher. Like I said, death is on the cards there. Whereas for me, I was just like, well, I've just got to leave the shit behind and do something else. And that's what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, Cope, but I mean, to be fair, like how much money is there really in helping people? I mean,
Not a lot.
yeah, I mean, you could make a lot.
Apparently.
You could, like realistically, you make a lot more money preying on people and like leeching them for everything they're worth. So,
Hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like an unfortunate fucking situation here, right? But like most people that like need the help, right? Like they're already in a bad enough situation that like they can't afford to like pay bajillions of dollars to work through their issues, right? Like it's like they've already ran themselves financially into the ground, and I mean it's obviously a lot more profitable being predatory and taking from people than it is trying to help people and give to people. And I
Yeah.
do think that that's kind of like a natural result, and that's why you see that like the helping people jobs aren't as lucrative, right? Because you're not trying to like bleed them dry. You're trying to help them get them back on their feet and get them into a position to where they're not getting bled dry. So yeah, like whenever a company's like, hey, I will pay you, like 3 times or, 2 or 3 times what you were gonna make if you just do the opposite of what you were doing. And I mean, then you take,
Yeah.
people with like their own situations that like need the money and shit. It's people are very easy to coerce with resources and power, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's I've talked about this a bit in the past, but like whenever people get into that point where they can be manipulated by fear, I think that's when people start doing like stupid and shady shit. But just like last week we were talking about 9/11, right? It's like, I'm not gonna say like George Bush like calculated and pulled this shit off, but I'm saying allowing it to happen sure as hell, pushed an agenda forward, didn't it? And then now you've got like basically all the people in the U.S. being like, yeah, we gotta pass the Patriot Act, because like what kind of fucking Nazi doesn't want the Patriot Act to pass, for God's sakes, right? I mean, it says Patriot right there in the name. And yeah, and next thing you know, you find out like what the Patriot Act actually did, which is like allow them to hold anyone without any kind of charges or like notification of family, any kind of like legal protection. You can just call them a terrorist, lock them in Guantanamo, and indefinitely they can die in there. As far as the law is concerned, and as long as you're holding them on some kind of suspicion of terrorism, you don't have to actually file charges. You don't have to give them a hearing. They are basically like in no man's land. You can do whatever the hell you want with them because they have no protections anymore. And on top of that, basically fully legalized mass surveillance that was already going on anyway. And yeah, and then it's just mind-boggling, right? Like whenever people allow themselves to be manipulated by fear, they start doing stupid shit. And I think we could probably even draw comparisons to with this chick getting her fucking ass destroyed by this guy. I mean, like her fear would have probably obviously been like my career's over if I don't do it, and shit like that. I mean, like people can be coerced through fear and threats of violence, and that's something we've seen throughout human history, right? I mean, like people didn't just like volunteer to be serfs and slaves. Like there was the threat of violence and there was fear instilled in them to where they complied. Like if the option is like this dude's gonna tie you to a fucking stake and beat you to death, or you can go out in the field and pick fucking cotton, like this is your alternatives, and like this is how something like slavery comes about. Like there's that inherent threat of violence, and that fear allows you to be controlled and manipulated. Now, I get that that's like a contentious topic, but I mean, I don't think that it's all that different than what we see going on today. I mean, sure, like this chick didn't get like tied to a stake and like whipped half to death, but she sure as hell did get put into a very unfair situation, probably coerced into it, and like ends up puking fucking blood after getting her ass like beaten by this dude that, you know, technically she should have been able to beat from the fair fight dynamic. But turns out that wasn't what it was.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like the perspective of persecution by the social justice warriors and that kind of stuff is a bit of an issue, because it means that we can't even have these kinds of discussions, without the backlash and that kind of thing happening. So imagine on that front what it would feel like, at least anyway, to be in that situation where you feel that at least with my decision with psychology and that kind of thing, like I actively made a decision. I looked and I said, you know what, fuck this shit, I'm not interested, keep it, right, I'm done, and I walked away from it. But I can empathize with that sensation of like, well, I don't want to leave here. This is a shit situation to be in. I don't want to make a decision, but if I want to continue down this path, Izzy, then I have to do what I don't want to do to continue, and that's a shit situation to be in. But it does kind of like lean on that fact of being worried about the backlash of your decisions, even though it could mean, and in this situation, death, right? Like, fuck, just imagine how that would feel like to be in that situation, have to make that decision. Yeah, it's a pretty shit place to be. But yeah, it's an easy way to manipulate people. Unfortunately, it's fucking working.
And here we all are with people throwing money to watch a dude beat a chick half to death on TV.
I guess this can kind of like segue into the other beat, which I actually thought this was going to take up a bit more of our time, but maybe we can continue next week if we run out of time. The Tom McDonald song that I shared with you, did you manage to listen to that one?
I'm trying to remember. I watched the cartoon one right before the show. I've seen most of Tom McDonald's videos, so
This one's like about a month old, so it hasn't been out that long.
Yeah, I might have missed it with all the hurricane shit. I have seen a bunch of his videos though, and I mean, obviously, I think he's capitalizing on the fucking like the hype and like people getting offended and all that shit. Good night, Krim. But yeah, my dog does the pee shuffle too. I understand. But yeah, I mean, like as much as this dude causes like outrage and like I think he kind of like thrives on the animosity and shit. Kind of like, I mean, you can draw parallels with Eminem back in the 90s. Like there's that like offend people, get notoriety. But if you listen to his lyrics, like the dude actually raises some really good points. And I mean, like even if rap is not like my go-to forte musical style or anything, yeah, like I will tell you, like I think the dude's brilliant. I think he makes like some really great lyrics. And yeah, I mean, I can see like how he pisses off and enrages people because he's not following the mainstream narrative. But yeah, I mean, like he's like literally made videos about like pissing off social justice warriors and shit. I mean, he just like he thrives on it. But honestly, man, like what else do you do in a very insane society? I mean, we can debate back and forth. Like, is he just trying to like monetary capitalize on this, or is he actually like trying to like really like raise awareness of these issues? I don't know, but listen to his lyrics. I mean, I think he raises some really great points about pointing out a lot of the like incongruencies in our society, a lot of the doublethink. Yeah, he's got some really smart lyrics. I'll give him that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think with this particular song, it kind of like he's reiterating a lot of the facts that, well, a lot of things that we say on the show every week, pretty much. And to the effect of what we were been saying today is like the first part of the first verse of Brainwashed, just to give you a little bit of insight there. But yeah, look, I think because I looked into this guy a little bit more, like I've heard some of his songs from way back when, And every now and then a new one pops up, and I'm like, oh, fuck, some good shit. Oh, I mean, it's been pretty good lyrics. I agree with you 100%. But reading through what's going on in this guy's life and that kind of thing, like this guy's doing exactly what we've been talking about, which is like when he started doing this kind of thing, like people didn't really want to have anything to do with him because it was too controversial, blah, 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 etc., and all that kind of thing. But at the same point, he didn't really want to have anything to do with anyone. He's basically doing his own shit from his home with his partner, and they create the videos, they make the music, and there's like a few people that they employ to help them with doing things, but they're the ones that have control over their whole thing, right? Um, so they're in control of what they're creating, what they're putting out there. There's no one telling them what they have to do, etc. And the dude's pretty successful with what he's doing. So there's that side of things. But the actual lyrics that we're talking about here, dude, there's some pretty heavy stuff in here. I mean, like you can read what's there on the screen. But there's also talking about the vaccines and keeping us scared, and pharma not wanting to cure people because they lose customers by doing so, and that kind of stuff. So I don't know, man. Have a bit of a listen. And look, to be honest, I don't agree with this guy, and like some of his stuff's pretty full on. But there's a lot of truth to what he says there. So I say have a bit of a listen, right? And see what you think.
Good morning, Breeze. Morning, I think. Much love.
See you, Breeze.
You know, look, I think it's pretty clear that I'm very anti-censorship. Um, I do think that, like, if this guy keeps pushing the envelope like he is, I think most likely he'll probably get pitchforked off of shit like YouTube, etc. And I find it really interesting, right? Like, the shit that this guy has gotten away with is pretty mind-boggling to me compared to, like, looking at like the other stuff that people have been like actually canceled for, like gotten their accounts deleted, all that kind of shit. I find it really odd that like he's still going strong, still getting millions of views and shit. Um, like I'll tell you that right there alone is enough to kind of like make me wonder, like why is this guy's narrative allowed to be getting put out there and getting told like it is? Like here's an example. If you guys have heard of Altered Carbon, there was like a Netflix series, but the author of Altered Carbon, Richard K. Morgan, he put out a tweet that was kind of like somewhere along the lines of like something you would probably hear J.K. Rowling say, right? Like it was kind of like anti. Uh, like transsexuality stuff. I mean, he was basically, like pointing out some of the same concerns that we've pointed out here tonight. And he got completely like shit canned off of Twitter. Like they deleted his account and everything. He still does a blog on his website, but like, I find it really weird that like you can say some of this shit and like you can like get boycotted, pitchforked, and like kicked off of all these different sites. I find it weird that like you know, Tom is still going. Like if you get what I'm saying, like he's still able to put out this kind of stuff like regularly. I've seen the guy like put out multiple videos in a week. Um, like he's not being censored or like blackballed on YouTube. He still pops up in my recommendations. I don't know, like that alone is enough to like kind of make me wonder, like why is he allowed to keep doing this kind of shit? But at the same time, like there's this part of me that like kind of like actually hopes that like they kick him off the platform, right? And the reason I say this is because I think it would push him into a Web3 situation. And I think that's really what we need. I think we need some of these like big high profile people to like get pushed off of like mainstream web, like Twitter, YouTube, shit like that, and like put them in the position to where to keep doing what they're doing, they have to adopt something like Web3 with like Hive or 3Speak, or even if it's not Hive related, they go to like one of the other, like decentralized like video platforms. I think that's what we need. We need some like big high profile motherfuckers getting kicked off and like forcing all of these users that follow them to go to somewhere outside of the control of these, fucking tech Illuminati conglomerates that, basically control the internet. And, like maybe, like to some extent, maybe that's why he hasn't been pushed off. Yeah, I mean, I can't, like, you see how quick YouTube is to cancel people and shut down their channels if they can't monetize it. I mean, this dude's getting millions of fucking views. I can promise you they're not monetizing him because his lyrics, definitely offend all the SJWs. I'm pretty sure they'd boycott the companies trying to run ads on his videos. But yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, why is he being allowed to keep, like saying this shit? And like other people that have said far less get completely canceled.
hmm Well, like I said, I do think that a good part of it has to do with the fact that yeah, he's doing his own shit. Like he's not like held accountable to like a label and that kind of thing. Um, and look, let's be real. Like if it's bringing in views, it's good for him, right? So obviously, like if he was doing this kind of stuff and he was getting like fuck all views, they'd probably go like, yeah, piss off, mate, not interested in that kind of thing, and just shut him down. But it's worth the views. You know what I mean? Like it's just that simple. So I don't know.
But that's the thing, Cope. Like it's only worth the views if they can monetize it. Like if they can't monetize it, it's a cost. Like that's the weird thing for me. Like look at what happened with Alex Jones. I mean, look, like that's PZ's boy. I think Alex Jones lost the way somewhere over the last decade or so. But anyway, I mean, like this was a dude that was consistently bringing a pretty huge platform to YouTube because he had lots of followers and shit like that. They had no problem ex-naying him, just fucking cutting him off. Like he's not, if I remember correctly, he's not allowed on Facebook or Twitter either, is he, PZ? Um, but yeah, like that's my point, right? Like, if they can't monetize it, they don't care how many views you get because it's an expense. Like that's bandwidth, that's hosting. Like they have to like pay to host these videos. They have to pay to stream it to all these people. If it's not making them money, then like business sense tells you like it doesn't make sense, right? Now, like there are plenty of demonetized channels on YouTube that haven't been completely axed yet, but I don't know, man. Like especially with like the topics that he gets into, like racial shit, he gets into like the trans shit. I mean, he gets into anything and everything, right? Like he doesn't really filter himself. I find it really odd that like they've canceled people for so much less, like deleted their channels, kicked them off of YouTube because they can't monetize it, but like he gets a pass.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said, as far as I'm concerned, like traffic is enough. Right, so if you're getting heavy traffic, it's good enough. But hey, look, there's obviously something going on there. But it is what it is. Yeah, I just posted that Snowflakes is another one that's come out recently, and it's got Blair White in there. Remember, like quite a few episodes back, we had a discussion about Blair White's like YouTube and that kind of thing, and because she is trans herself, but she's pretty sort of like no bullshit about it. It's kind of like, well, there's no snowflake about it, kind of thing, which is why she's in this clip as well. But it's pretty cool. Anyway, check it out, have a look. There's some good stuff in there. Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with the extremity and perspective of things, but it's interesting to see. Kind of like how I was discussing last week with the whole. Back in the day, it was kind of like if you said these kinds of things, you're like, oh, he's one of these crazy people that think reptilian people live under the ground and that kind of thing. He's one of the crazy ones. Whereas like now it's a lot more mainstream. I do think that this kind of thing will at least lead us towards that tipping point where people get a bit more real work, not fake work, and recognize what's going on around us, and the fact that we're being divided through stupid shit like race, sex, patriotism, like all these different things that come up basically by design to keep us separated. And one of the lines in the brainwashed clip there is something along the lines like, if we could sort of like work together, we'd go against them, kind of thing. And that's what they're scared of. They're scared of us recognizing the game and revolting, if you will, against the government powers or the powers that be, whatever it is. So the data is out there. It's coming out a lot more often. Like I said, I could probably talk to maybe maybe 2 to 5% of the people about this, in the 90s when I was seeing it. But like these days, it's more 20, 30% are more than open to having the discussion. I'd say 50% will be sort of like listening but not weigh in. I think once we get to the 50% where people are completely weighing in, like, yeah, man, I see through the bullshit, blah, 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 etc., that's when we're going to start seeing some changes. But we're definitely headed in the right direction, I believe.
Well, PZ, one thing I want to touch on with what PZ just said there. I think part of the problem with being a keyboard commando, right? One, it's not like a real threat. So I feel like, you're right on the divide and conquer aspect there. But if you really think about the way the internet works and the way that like our devices work now, like I have an Android phone sitting next to me, and I have like zero doubt that if anybody, like up the ladder wanted to listen to anything I'm saying, like the phone doesn't matter. Like they could probably do it just through my internet connection, but like I already know I've caught my phone like literally recording my voice saying shit because I went through Google's like log. Like at one point they had to make it like public whatever they recorded your voice saying, and I went through it and like I would like listen to shit where they had just recorded me talking, and I'm like, what the fuck? But yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem is when you have a bunch of like keyboard commandos out there that like want to go to war over the internet. One, like they're not an actual like real threat, but two, they're constantly tattling on themselves. Like every time they make that tweet about like, so and so needs to get God or whatever. I mean, like they're literally like publicly proclaiming their fucking, you know, guilt. So like if anything actually does happen, all they gotta do is go like, dig up some internet records and say like, this guy's an extremist, terrorist, whatever. But like at the same time, like at what point are we gonna get to you say something on social media, so like now your life's over because you're, you know, like fuck, we've already got the Patriot Act. All they gotta do is call you a terrorist, PZ. Like let's say PZ gets a little sauced one night and he starts saying some stupid shit about Biden on Discord. And dude, like I have zero doubt that Discord is fucking honeypot central after some of the shit that I've been seeing and like reading their TOS. I don't know,
Yeah.
man. Like I don't
Yeah.
think everything you think or do or say needs to be like put into a public forum, especially whenever you consider like the basically just like unlimited wiretap running through these public forums. Like anything you say or do online, like, you can pretty much guarantee there's a record of it. Now you can have really good OPSEC. You can do things like not speak with your voice, right? Like only use text. Like there are ways to like do it correctly to not get caught. But I'm saying like most of these people are just like publicly fucking tattling on themselves 24/7. Just like the things they say, the things they imply. Like like you're just constantly giving people ammo to use against you if they ever want to, and that's one of the reasons why. One, like I've gotten pretty good with, like outside of Hive, I'm pretty separated in my, I guess like paper trail things like that. I've had to learn quite a lot about OPSEC, but at the same time, I don't think you can be 100% hidden and still, like get your point across. I mean, like maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, Satoshi did a pretty good job with Bitcoin, in my opinion. But I mean, I think that's what the world needs. Like, we need people that aren't afraid to like speak out and say shit like, paying to watch a man beat a woman half to death on TV is stupid. Like it's just insane. But like this is where we're going as a society. We're now normalizing it to toddlers. I mean, like what do you think it's going to look like in the next, 10, 15, 20 years? Like you don't think this shit's going to be like normalized? And then like what's that going to push us to innovate? Are we going to like have to start making, like different types of hormones and shit to make it like even more fair so people had to, like mutilate their body further and like get like a real level playing field? Like, are we gonna start, like going in and, like having operations to remove some muscle mass from these guys that want to transition to put them on a level playing field. I don't know, man. Like, I think we're going to enter some really weird times in the future if things keep going this direction. And, like looking at them preaching it to fucking toddlers, I don't think it's slowing down any.
Well, I think it is, right? Because it's going to reach a tipping point where it goes too far. And I think we've discussed this before, like the Earth wobble. Like it goes one way to a certain point, and it comes all the way back, backwards and forwards. And we can even refer to it as the death wobble. You ever had the death wobble on your push bike, on your pushy, or on your skateboard? And like you're just trying to get control of this thing, and it's just going like backwards and forwards, left and right, left and right. But it's either going to come to a crash, or you're going to get control of it. But I think we're going to push this to a certain point, and by we I mean humanity, right? Not you and me personally, Clay. Push it to a certain point, and then we're going to have to start reeling it back, like what we're talking about here, where people are going to die in this situation, right? It's going to get to a point where people are going to die. Now, it might take that, or we might be able to pull the nose up of the plane before it hits the ground, and change it. And then we're probably going to go all the way in the other direction, right? And then we're going to pull it back, right? And it's just the circle of life. It's just what we do. I'm just hoping that it comes sooner than later. And like I said, with all this data that we've been putting up with this Tom McDonald and the woke tunes and that kind of thing, I think people are starting to come around to it, and we're going to start seeing a bit more of a stand against these things when they come up and just go like, no, we will not accept it. And it's not a point. And they can scream, transphobia, homophobia, or whatever they want to. It's not going to fucking matter, because what we need to do is care less. Like, why the fuck do you care what this person on the other side of the world thinks on a keyboard? Fuck, who cares, right? Because at the end of the day, like we're saying, if the choice comes down to stepping in the ring and getting the shit kicked out of me, right, and dying, or having somebody call me a name, I'm going to take people calling me a name, right? It's just that simple. And when it comes to making a decision on what's right for me as an individual, with the jobs that I choose, the people that I interact with, and that kind of thing, call me whatever the fuck you want to. I don't care, right? I'm going about my life. You can try and cancel me all that you want to. It only works if I let it work, right? Don't let them impact you. Just do your shit, do your thing, baby, and don't worry about anybody else.
I mean, personally, I think it's going to come down to money. I mean, I think that's what it always comes down to. And one of the weird things with the MMA is like with most sports and shit like that, right? Like whenever the sponsors, like the people paying money for all the ads and all that shit, whenever they start pulling the money, that's what makes these people take notice, right? Well, with something like MMA, the majority of that money is coming from pay-per-views, right? Like people paying, 50, 60, $100, whatever, to order a fight through their cable box, whatever. Like that's what it boils down to. So, I mean, I would say if it was just ads, like just pulling sponsorships, things like that, I think the first time you see a woman like literally get beat to death, like actually murdered in the fucking ring, I think that's when sponsors would be immediately like pulling shit, right? And look, it's not like MMA, UFC, all that shit. It's not like they don't have some sponsors, but the thing that they care about is selling those pay-per-views and selling out arenas, right? I think as long as people are willing to pay to watch it, like I don't even know if it'll phase them if they actually kill somebody. I really don't, because like if that's what people want to see, like maybe that will be the wake up call. Who knows? Like maybe like people are gonna sit there and keep thinking like this is what they want to watch, this is what they want to watch, and then whenever they finally see it, they're gonna be like, fuck, I don't want to watch that. Like, dude, I promise you, watching a guy like literally sit there and punch and beat a woman to death on TV, it is not gonna be something a lot of people want to watch, even if they think it is. Like, you can watch people die online. Like, trust me, I've seen plenty of fucking videos and gifs I wish I hadn't. Um, yeah, but like seriously, just like watching, like full HD zoom in while some guy like just like literally pummels a woman to a fucking pulp until she's dead. I think a lot of people are gonna be like, fuck, like they're gonna have that like stomach turn sensation and realize like, like maybe this is a bit more extreme. I mean, like I wish like hell I didn't think it would have to go there. But yeah, like what's gonna speak to these people? Taking the fucking money away. And yeah, I mean, like since sponsorship isn't really like the biggest deal in this situation, I think it's going to literally take people getting to that point where they're like, fuck this, and like they don't want to pay for it anymore. And I think when that
Yeah.
happens, like maybe it'll push it in the other direction.
Let's hope so. But I do think that, humanity being humanity is going to take something extreme like a death and that kind of thing. But on the fundamental level, I think it comes down to us as individuals, to make better decisions for ourselves. Because the thing is, like, there's always going to be somebody who's willing to pay, to see some horrible shit happen. I mean, like, from what we're talking about here, like a man beating a woman, that kind of thing. We did take, like, your 8mm situation or whatever it's called, like snuff films, and people doing dirty shit online, and people getting attacked by wild animals. Like, people are looking up that shit. We can't rely on that, right? What we can rely on, though, when there's a choice, right, like there is in front of us here, to make a decision that's better, for us as individuals. Another example I can throw into the ring as well is the whole music side of things. When the whole idol stuff was going around. Like, I read the contracts. Like, a lot of people were just like, yeah, I'm going to sign the contract, and I want to get famous. I want to have money. I want to be a writer. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. They were so engulfed with the idea of becoming a superstar that they weren't reading the contracts and shit. And I'm reading the contracts, and I'm like, dude, what this contract says is that if I sign this, anything that I do musically from here on in is owned by you. That doesn't sound right. And they're like, oh, well, if you don't want to sign it, like, step aside. There's people behind you that want to sign up. And I'm like, well, fine, keep it. I'm not fucking doing it, because I'm not signing this. I'm not playing this game. But I think that to get to that point, it takes a certain amount of self-awareness. And this is where the whole work thing, real work, not fake work, a certain degree of self-awareness to look at things beyond the pleasure principle, as in, like, getting something fun out of it right now and thinking about the future and going, like, yeah, look, this is not a very good decision for me to make right now. So I would rather leave it than take the risk of going into this thing and it turning out pretty shithouse, right? So again, just another example to throw into the ring, into the arena, of consideration. Like, when decisions come before you, have a really good think about it, right? That's all I can say.
Okay, Copo.
Good night, Izzy.
We now have a third of the audience demanding weird noises, and yeah, I guess we gotta wrap this shit up.
Well, I'm gonna throw in a sliver for 9, just to make sure that that's in there. Is there anything? Did I miss anything else? We said patient zero. We said, not financial advice. Arvo for Julia, since she's still here.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, so if the entire audience would please just, get your subwoofer, right? Just like turn the bass all the way up, and just kind of like straddle that subwoofer, and we're gonna make some weird noises at you through the radio.
Much love, keep your in any directions. We'll catch you next time. Bow, bow, bow. Stay woke, yo.